Dear chosen ones, welcome back to a space where your spirit is seen, your fire is honored, and your journey is holy. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity keeps this light shining brighter, and even if you haven't given but you're here, listening, present, and engaged, I'm just as grateful for you. Your energy, your time, your spirit, they matter more than you know. Now let's begin. Have you ever wondered why the kindest people you know, the ones who seem to carry peace like a second skin, also seem to carry a fire that could shake mountains when provoked? That paradox isn't weakness, it's divine wiring. And if you're watching this, then you, chosen one, are the embodiment of that mystery. You weren't created to be one-dimensional. You weren't sent here to be either soft or strong. You were designed to be both. Gentle in love, but a lion when truth is threatened. What you're about to hear in this video isn't hype. It's revelation. A spiritual unlocking of why you've always been kind, yet fierce when challenged. The world might see your gentleness and assume you're timid, unaware that beneath that quiet exterior is a warrior trained by heaven. They think your silence means surrender until they push too far. And that's when something shifts. Have you felt it before? That internal click, that moment where your soul says, enough. You tried peace, you chose grace. But then something divine surged through you, not out of anger, but out of alignment. That wasn't rage. That was the anointing, the sacred moment where the Spirit rises to defend truth through you. And let me tell you something clearly, that's not a personality trait, that's spiritual authority. You're not just emotional, you're encoded. You're not just intuitive, you're activated. Chosen ones carry a unique blueprint, and some of you have even felt it physically. Heat in your hands, tingles in your palms, strange lines or X's that seem to pulse during prayer. That's not fantasy, that's function. Those are prophetic hand signs, spiritual signatures confirming your role on earth. When you touch, energy moves. When you pray, realms respond. When you build, heaven backs your hands. You are not here by accident. Your very body is marked for mission. Let me speak to your spirit now. You were never created to be walked on. You were sent to be walked with. You were meant to lead, not from pride, but from presence. You were called to love so deeply it melts hearts, and fight so righteously it melts strongholds. You are not just here to keep peace. You are here to protect it. You've been told you're too nice, too soft, maybe even too quiet. But what they don't see is the holy storm you carry within. Your kindness is not a flaw, it's a discipline, and your restraint is not fear, it's a weapon of the spiritually mature. And here's the part the world still doesn't understand. When a chosen one is pushed too far, not out of pride, but when injustice rises, you don't fold, you transform. That calm presence becomes a force of truth. That silence becomes a trumpet of justice. That stillness becomes spiritual warfare. The warrior within awakens, not with fists, but with fire from the throne of God. You don't speak to defend your ego. You speak when truth must be defended. You don't act to prove your power. You act when heaven gives the signal. So, have you ever felt that divine fire rise inside you at just the right time? That righteous pressure that hits your chest and you just know, this is not a moment to stay silent. If you've felt it, drop a 777 in the comments. That was never a breakdown. That was a breakthrough. That was the warrior in you answering the call. And if no one has ever told you this before, let me be the first. You're not too much. You're the right amount of everything heaven needs in this hour. Let's begin this journey together. You are not just chosen, you are commissioned. And today, we rise. God's chosen ones, why you are kind yet fierce when challenged. There is something divinely disruptive about being both kind and fierce. It doesn't make sense to most people. They try to categorize you, label you, reduce you to one extreme or the other. But chosen one, you were never created to fit into simple definitions. You were sculpted by God's own design to hold what few can handle, sacred duality. You're not just gentle or just strong. You are the embodiment of balance, grace that can correct, compassion that can confront, silence that carries thunder, and peace that can pierce. Have you ever wondered why people seem thrown off by your presence? Why they're unsure how to read you? It's because you're not meant to be read. You're meant to be revealed by divine timing. You were divinely engineered to hold both heaven's mercy and its judgment. People expect kindness to mean silence, but they don't realize that your silence is watchful, not weak. Your calm isn't apathy, it's authority. You don't bite your tongue because you're afraid. You do it because your words are weapons, and you've been trained by heaven to choose your battles. As Proverbs 17:27 declares, "The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered." Your restraint is not a limitation, it is power under divine discipline. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., who carried non-violent strength but stood unshaken against brutal injustice, or Maya Angelou, whose gentle voice sliced through centuries of pain. Their kindness wasn't weakness, it was forged in fire. Like you, chosen one, they walked softly but carried spiritual thunder. So let me ask you, have you been mistaking your quiet for passivity? Have others told you that if you were truly powerful, you'd be louder, more aggressive? Don't believe it. The atmosphere shifts when you walk into a room, not because you say a lot, but because your spirit says everything. You are the kind of presence that doesn't need to scream to be felt. Why? Because God's hand is upon you. When you choose to be kind, it's not because you don't know how to destroy someone with words. It's because you've been entrusted with the maturity to know when to speak and when to stand still. That's why the Bible says in James 1:19, "Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Your kindness is strategy. Your silence is spiritual warfare. But when unrighteousness disturbs the peace you were assigned to protect, your fierceness activates not from pride but from purpose. You move not because you're triggered, but because heaven has given you clearance. Remember Malala Yousafzai, a gentle girl who stood for education in the face of violence. She was kind, but when truth called her to speak, her voice became a roar that echoed through nations. This is your story too, chosen one. How many times have you held your tongue, not out of fear, but wisdom? And how many times has the room frozen when you finally spoke? That's not intimidation, that's divine alignment. You don't stir chaos, you carry clarity. People may not always understand you. They may try to push you into categories that feel suffocating, but you weren't born to fit. You were born to fracture systems that suppress the truth. Most people either become too passive or too harsh. But you live in that holy tension between mercy and might. When others run from confrontation, you stay grounded. When others explode in emotion, you execute with accuracy. Think of Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for years, yet emerged not with bitterness, but with focused strength. He forgave, yes, but he also reformed a nation. Do you see the pattern? Even the Bible reveals this divine contradiction in Jesus himself. Isaiah 42:3 says, "A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out." Yet in Matthew 21:12, we see Jesus flipping tables in the temple, confronting corruption. Why? Because love does not tolerate deception. Kindness does not mean permissiveness. As a chosen one, you reflect both aspects of God's heart, the tender shepherd and the roaring lion. So when someone repeatedly tries to manipulate your grace, when they mistake your forgiveness for foolishness, they don't realize the lion in you has simply been observing. Discernment is your first weapon, not your last. You're not waiting because you're afraid. You're waiting because you know the exact second when God will tell you to speak, to move, to shift the atmosphere with holy fire. Do you remember that moment when you chose not to respond to a personal attack? And yet days later, everything started turning in your favor. That's not luck. That's what happens when a chosen one obeys divine instruction. It's also why the enemy fears you, because your fierceness isn't reactive. It's anointed. It's calibrated by heaven. You don't just defend yourself, you defend truth. You don't just react, you reveal. As Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." So your battle isn't petty, it's prophetic. You're not here to win arguments. You're here to establish kingdom truth. Look at Oprah Winfrey. So often misunderstood, yet her discernment and inner power have made her one of the most influential women on earth. She doesn't lead with force, she leads with presence. That's what you do. You are like a sword wrapped in silk. The world sees the softness, but those with spiritual eyes know you cut through illusions and spiritual manipulation. Your kindness isn't performative. Your boundaries aren't bitterness. They're divine intelligence. You weren't created to downplay your power. You've spent so long trying to make people comfortable, shrinking yourself so others wouldn't feel small next to your light. But now is the time to step into your fullness. That fierce energy in you, it's not your flaw, it's your armor. You are not too much. You are perfectly designed for the battle you were born to fight. So let your gentleness speak before your words do. Let your energy confuse the enemy. Let your roar be holy, timely, and unstoppable. You are not here to prove anything. You are here to embody heaven. As Romans 12:21 declares, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." But when evil refuses to back down, let your goodness become your sword. Let your light become your fire. You are not a contradiction. You are the confirmation that God still creates warriors with hearts. You are fierce and kind. You are soft and immovable. And that chosen one is what makes you dangerous, in the most holy, necessary, and powerful way. Spiritual boldness is not what the world usually recognizes as strength. It doesn't shout, doesn't demand a spotlight, and doesn't seek applause. Instead, it lives quietly within you, chosen one, an inner warrior, shaped by divine encounters and tested through fire. You may not wear armor on the outside, but your spirit has been clothed in something far more powerful, unshakable truth. This boldness is ancient. It's encoded into your being, woven into your presence. And when it rises, it doesn't ask for permission. It simply takes its place. Have you ever wondered why your silence speaks louder than others' noise? Why your mere presence shifts the atmosphere without you trying? That is spiritual boldness in action, the signature of someone who was chosen, not created for crowd approval, but divine assignment. You've likely always known deep down that a warrior lives inside you. Even before you had language for it, you felt it, that fire in your belly, that holy unrest when injustice moved near. You couldn't ignore it. You couldn't fake peace when something unrighteous stirred in the room. And now you know why. That wasn't just personality. That wasn't defiance. That was destiny. Like Harriet Tubman, who followed divine vision over human fear, you carry an instinct to protect, to liberate, to speak, even when it costs you. So let me ask, how many times have you stood up for others while your own knees were shaking? How often have you defended truth when silence would have been easier? That's not rebellion, that's calling. Spiritual boldness isn't about aggression or the need to dominate. It's the power to stay planted in your truth, even when it trembles the room. It's the ability to speak when silence feels safer, to stay aligned with heaven when every earthly voice tells you to conform. Chosen ones are not here to please people. They're here to obey purpose. Galatians 1:10 makes this clear. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. That verse is the anthem of your identity. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to disrupt darkness with your very presence. The enemy isn't threatened by the loudest voices. No, the enemy fears the quiet ones carrying heaven in their bones, the ones like you who seem unassuming yet hold generations in their spirit. That's why you've been tested. That's why your life has not been easy. You've endured betrayal, seasons of isolation, loss and confusion. Why? Not to destroy you, but to forge the fire inside you. Think of Rosa Parks. She didn't yell, she didn't scream, but her refusal to move changed history. That same quiet conviction flows through your veins. Have you noticed that your spirit doesn't allow you to stay silent in the presence of lies? That heat in your chest, that pressure rising, that's not anxiety. That's the Holy Spirit activating your warrior spirit. Even when your voice shakes, the atmosphere still shifts. Even when you whisper, demons notice. That's because your words are backed by heaven. You don't need a crowd to validate you. You don't need a pulpit. You're the message. You are the sermon. Your life is the proof. Spiritual boldness appears in your everyday obedience. It's when you say no and disappoint expectations. It's when you walk away without needing to defend yourself. It's when you choose holiness over popularity. As Joshua 1:9 reminds us, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. That is the kind of boldness that reshapes atmospheres. That is the strength you carry. Some of you are just now realizing that you've been bold all along. It just didn't look the way others expected. You couldn't pretend to be fake. You couldn't laugh at things that made your spirit cry. You couldn't stay silent when something inside screamed, "This isn't right." That's not stubbornness. That's obedience. Like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who stood against injustice in Nazi Germany, some chosen ones are given assignments that demand costly truth. And you, chosen one, are beginning to feel the weight of your truth. Are you noticing it more now, how your presence disturbs what's unholy? That's not accidental, that's spiritual evidence. Many of you have been told you're too much, too intense, too raw, but what they really meant was that your light made their darkness uncomfortable. Your authenticity revealed their pretense. And instead of owning it, they tried to shrink you. But you weren't created to shrink. You were designed to blaze. Stop apologizing for your fire. Don't dim what God lit. Instead, lean in. Let that inner warrior rise. God doesn't tame his warriors. He trains them. And that training sometimes looks like walking alone, being the only one with the courage to say, "This is not of God." That's not weakness. That's divine audacity. If you've ever sat in silence while someone mocked your faith and still held your peace, that was spiritual boldness. If you've ever walked away from something toxic when every part of your flesh wanted revenge, that was heavenly restraint. If you've ever drawn a boundary and meant it, knowing it would cost you relationships or status, that was your spirit choosing holiness over hype. Romans 8:37 says, "In all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." You are not just surviving, chosen one. You are conquering in silence. Consider Serena Williams. Her strength isn't only physical, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. She's been underestimated, misunderstood, and yet she keeps winning. That's you. You don't fight for validation. You stand in truth. You don't yell to be heard. Your stillness speaks. Your fire doesn't burn wild. It burns precise. And that's why you're a threat to every structure built on lies. So stop second-guessing your boldness. Stop downplaying the anointing that makes rooms pause when you enter. You weren't created to be liked. You were commissioned to lead. Real chosen ones don't follow trends. They follow truth. You're not here to echo noise. You're here to carry sound, divine sound. And when you fully embrace who you are, something unshakable happens. Even your silence becomes warfare. Even your breath becomes prophecy. That is spiritual boldness. As we move forward, stay with me. Because this fire you carry isn't random, it's been written into your design. The next step, we go deeper. There are markings on your physical body, especially your hands, that reveal you were called for more. Look at your hands, chosen one. Those lines, scars, even their shape, they are not random. They carry prophecy. They are blueprints of your calling. You don't just carry boldness in your voice. You carry destiny in your skin. And as the next part of this revelation unfolds, ask yourself, what if the very hands you've doubted are the hands God has chosen to build his kingdom through? Because they are, and you'll see it soon. Get ready. You see, chosen one, there are signs carved into your very body, signs the world often dismisses, but heaven does not. And among the most powerful of these signs are the markings on your hands. These aren't simply skin patterns or biological quirks. They are spiritual signatures, visible confirmations of the invisible realm. Have you ever stared at your hands and noticed something unusual? An X that seems too symmetrical, lines that crisscross like maps, a strange pulse or persistent warmth in your palms? That's not random. That's not superstition. That is God marking what he intends to use. Why the hands? Because they are your instruments of motion, your extensions of obedience, your sacred tools of impact. Have you ever wondered why, of all the parts of your body, the hands carry such sensitivity, such presence? In both scripture and sacred traditions, hands have always symbolized power. In Deuteronomy 34:9 it says, "Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him." The act of laying on hands is not a metaphor. It is a divine exchange. For the chosen ones, your hands are not ordinary flesh. They are conduits of heaven's energy. That's why when you lay your hands in prayer, people feel peace. That's why children trust your embrace. Animals are drawn to your stillness, and strangers feel seen in your presence. When you pray, when you create, when you comfort, it's not just emotional, it's spiritual. Your hands do more than touch. They transfer healing, carry prophecy, and disrupt atmospheres. Do you ever feel warmth rising from your palms during deep moments of worship or prayer? That is not your imagination. That is activation. You weren't given this sensitivity to be overwhelmed by the world. You were entrusted with it to change the world. Think of Mother Teresa, whose gentle hands washed the dying, yet whose spirit commanded empires to listen. Her hands didn't shout, but they healed. And so do yours. That tingling, that sensation you sometimes feel in sacred spaces, around specific people, or when you worship, that's your spirit responding to alignment. That's the divine within you, recognizing territory. Have you noticed how some people lean into your touch, how they linger in your presence even when you've said nothing? That's not charm, that's anointing. It's the vibration of your calling, radiating through your very skin. And with this sacred responsibility often comes resistance. Some of you have faced unexplainable hand injuries, nerve discomfort, or even chronic tension that no doctor could diagnose. Ever wonder why it's your hands that face attack? It's because the enemy always targets what God intends to use. Just as Samson's hair was his strength, your hands are part of your divine assignment. You may have scars. You may have trauma etched into your palms. But scars on a chosen one are not disqualifiers. They are confirmations. As Isaiah 49:16 declares, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are ever before me." That verse is both literal and symbolic. You are engraved, remembered, commissioned. Some of you have never really paid attention to these signs. You brushed them off as coincidence. But now God is asking you to look again. Your fingerprints, your lines, your sensitivity, they're not decorations. They're blueprints. You were designed for impact. The way a prophet speaks with their mouth, a healer speaks with their hands. Your hands may tremble during intercession, heat up during worship, or ache in places where pain is hidden. That's not weakness. That's discernment. Have you been downplaying this? Have you been ignoring the pull to use your hands more intentionally? Don't. It's time to awaken what's been placed within you. Look at people like Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon whose hands were used to restore life and bring hope to impossible cases. Or Florence Nightingale, whose touch comforted the forgotten in war zones. These are not just stories. They are mirrors of what God can do through hands that are willing, obedient, and surrendered. You don't need a stage or a pulpit. Sometimes the holiest work happens when no one is watching, when your hands are holding the broken, writing truth, planting seeds, or raising others up in quiet acts of radical love. 1 Peter 4:10 reminds us, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." Your gift may flow directly from your hands. That's why your hands feel different. That's why others respond to your presence. That's why the enemy tried to attack what you were meant to build with. But what God anoints, no force can ultimately destroy. The pain you felt in your hands may have been spiritual resistance, but the healing, that is spiritual restoration. The same hands that were wounded will now be used to wage war for the kingdom, to write, to design, to pray, to anoint, to raise up others. The fire in your voice is real, but so is the fire in your fingertips. And here's the deeper truth. These hand signs are not meant to glorify you. They're meant to equip you. They are God's way of reminding you, you are marked, not just called. You are equipped, not just emotional. You are chosen, not just inspired. The lines, the energy, the heat, they are a spiritual language your body speaks when your spirit is stirred. When someone tells you you have healing hands, believe them. When your touch calms a storm in someone's heart, don't doubt it. That's God confirming His work through you. That's the fire flowing not just from within, but through your very skin. So what now? Use them. Don't hold back. Lay hands on the sick. Write the truth. Build what God shows you in dreams. Lift others when they're down. Set boundaries. Fight when needed. But above all, bless. When you rise, chosen one, don't just speak. Move. Move with purpose. Move with holiness. Move knowing that every motion carries a mission. Every gesture is filled with grace. Psalm 90:17 says, "May the favor of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us." Yes, establish the work of our hands. That prayer is already answered in your life. Now walk it out and stay close, because the next revelation will peel back the mystery even further. Why do you get tested so often? Why does life keep poking your peace like it's trying to provoke the warrior inside of you? It's not by accident. The next section will reveal why the pressure never seems to let up. Because when you're chosen, pressure doesn't break you, it builds you. You've probably wondered why life seems to place you, chosen one, in situations that test your restraint again and again. You could destroy someone with a single sentence. You could expose the lies, set the record straight, fire back with full force. But something in you always holds the line. That hesitation you feel, it's not fear, it's not weakness, It's spiritual intelligence in motion. That voice telling you to pause, to breathe, to wait, is the Spirit of God keeping you aligned. Because your calling is too great to be wasted on small battles. Have you ever felt the fire rise in your chest, only to be told by your spirit, "Not now"? That's heaven refining you, not silencing you. That's God sharpening the edge without letting the sword swing too soon. This is the path of the chosen, to be tested, not to break, but to build. You are forged under pressure, like gold refined in fire, not for destruction, but for purification, as Proverbs 17:3 reminds us. The crucible is for silver, and the furnace is for gold, and the Lord tests hearts. What you're going through is not punishment, it's preparation. The people around you who misunderstand your stillness think they've won, but they don't realize they're standing before holy fire. When you remain calm, they assume you're powerless. But silence from a chosen one is never passive. It's powerful. Have you noticed how often you walk away from drama, and yet drama still seems to chase you? That's because your presence stirs conviction. You don't even have to speak for people to feel exposed. Why is that? Because your light reveals what they've buried. Your spirit makes the hidden visible. And even when you try to be gentle, even when you try to keep peace, they poke and provoke, hoping you'll crack. They're not just trying to get a reaction, they're trying to see if the warrior inside you can be pulled out for entertainment. But your fire isn't for show, it's for sacred purposes. As Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 10:16, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." That's your posture, chosen one, sharp discernment with sacred restraint. This is why spiritual warriors like you often go through the most intense relational trials. Think of Nelson Mandela, who had every reason to lash out after decades of wrongful imprisonment, yet responded with grace and wisdom. That wasn't cowardice, that was divine control. Or think of Michelle Obama, who has been tested, criticized and mocked, yet holds her ground with elegance and fire. These are not just public figures. They are reminders that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers with clarity. Let's get this straight. You're not being attacked because you're weak. You're being attacked because you're walking in purpose. The enemy doesn't waste time on empty vessels. He targets those filled with light, those whose words carry weight, those whose presence is enough to shift the spirit of a room. Have you noticed how the moment you decide to stay in peace, life throws another test? That's not coincidence. That's spiritual resistance. But every time you respond with clarity instead of chaos, you prove that your calling is greater than the conflict. And yes, it's exhausting. Some of you are feeling it right now, in your home, at work, in your own family. You're the one who holds the peace, who swallows offenses, who tries to bring balance. And somehow, you're the one constantly being pushed. Why? Because your peace confronts their internal chaos. And because of that, they'll test your boundaries, cross your limits, and poke your spirit. But don't mistake that for failure. It's confirmation. As Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. You're not just surviving these battles, you're outgrowing them. To be chosen is to live by a higher code. You don't get to respond like everyone else. You don't get to match disrespect with disrespect. Why? Because your fire is divine, not reactive. You were never meant to be reduced to petty arguments. Your silence isn't defeat, it's divine strategy. You're not weak for walking away, you're wise. You're not a doormat, you're a doorway. You are the entrance to something holy, something sacred. People may try to step on you, but they don't realize they're stepping toward their own transformation or judgment. The question is, will you protect that sacredness? Will you preserve your energy for where it truly matters? That is the power of being fierce and kind. You don't burn everything down. You wait for the order. You don't speak because you're provoked. You speak because you've been commanded. And that's why your presence is so intimidating. You are not moved by ego. You are moved by divine truth. As Ephesians 6:13 says, "Put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground." That's exactly what you've been doing. Standing your ground, even when misunderstood, even when falsely accused, even when silence cost you more than words ever would have. Let me remind you of someone else who embodied this. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, a man of quiet power, fierce conviction, and incredible restraint. His kindness changed generations, yet behind that soft tone was a soul deeply aligned with righteousness. Like him, you don't need to yell to be heard. Your energy is the sermon, your calm is the confrontation, and your silence is your sanctity. So, protect your fire, guard your energy. Not everyone is worthy of your response. Not every attack deserves your attention. You are not here to react. You are here to move with purpose. And when God calls you to speak, you will do so with fire that heals, not just burns. You were never meant to be diluted to fit their comfort. You were meant to rise and reflect heaven. And if you feel this hitting your spirit right now, if your chest feels heavy and your eyes are tearing up, it's because your soul recognizes the truth in these words. You are being refined, not rejected. Get ready for what's next. In the next part of this journey, we'll go deeper into your divine instincts, how they activate under threat, why you feel the shift before it happens, and how to harness that inner radar that's never been wrong. Because your discernment is not paranoia, it's prophecy in disguise, and it's time you learn how to use it with authority. Let's set the record straight once and for all, chosen one. Walking in peace does not mean you are weak. Never let the world confuse your stillness with softness. What they see as silence is actually strategic readiness. What they label as gentleness is deeply rooted strength governed by divine restraint. The most powerful warriors in the kingdom are often the ones who smile the most, speak the least, and stay low until heaven commands them to rise. And when that moment comes, when the spiritual signal hits, the atmosphere shifts. The world watches something it was never prepared for. A soul saturated in peace transforming into a divine weapon. That's not fantasy. That's your reality. You weren't chosen to be passive. You were chosen to carry fire with precision, not to prove your worth, but to fulfill God's purpose. Have you ever felt that inner blaze when injustice rises, but also felt the Spirit say, "Wait"? That's not hesitation. That's holy control. You carry sacred fire, and that's why you don't waste it on petty battles. You don't rise for every argument. You rise only when heaven signals. That's the difference between you and the reactive world. Your power isn't loud, but it is unmistakable. Isaiah 30:15 declares, "In quietness and trust is your strength." That is your secret weapon, quiet trust. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to attack to protect. Because when the time comes, your voice doesn't echo, it commands. And your actions don't explode, they execute. You are a warrior, not of impulse, but of intention. Think about the warriors God chose throughout history. David didn't defeat Goliath just because he had skill. He won because he was anointed. That one stone was guided by purpose, not force. Esther didn't walk into the king's court out of pride. She waited, prayed, and when she moved, nations were saved. Jesus, the very Lion and the Lamb, walked in unmatched gentleness. But when righteousness was threatened, he flipped tables in holy confrontation. That is your pattern. That is your code. You know what it feels like to hold your tongue when your spirit is stirred. You know the tension of having truth on your tongue, but hearing God whisper, "Not yet," That's not fear. That's fire under command. And when the command comes, you move like thunder wrapped in wisdom. The world doesn't understand this kind of strength. They look at your silence and think you're afraid. They see your kindness and assume you can be manipulated. But your patience terrifies darkness. Because when you finally rise, it's not out of ego, it's out of alignment. You're not random with your power, you're surgical, strategic, like a seasoned general waiting for divine instruction. Psalm 144:1 says, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." That training is happening in you every time you choose prayer over pettiness, stillness over screaming, wisdom over wrath. Remember Corrie ten Boom, a woman who forgave the guards who imprisoned her family during the Holocaust. That was not weakness, that was spiritual boldness. And Nelson Mandela, who emerged from prison not with vengeance, but with vision. These were God's warriors, peaceful until called unstoppable when sent, just like you. Your gentleness is not a mask, it is your natural essence. But when righteousness is mocked and truth is trampled, the lion in you awakens. You weren't created to run from confrontation, you were formed to redeem it. And no, that doesn't mean you lash out. Chosen ones don't throw hands, they throw truth. You don't curse those who wrong you. You speak judgment wrapped in clarity. You don't chase revenge. You release justice on God's timing. That's why the enemy trembles, because your fire is not reckless, it's righteous. And when you move, it's never emotion-led, it's spirit-led. Romans 12:19 reminds us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord." You trust divine timing. You don't have to rush, because when God moves through you, the result is complete. This is exactly why the world keeps poking you. They're trying to get a reaction, trying to bait you into stepping out of character, but they don't realize your stillness is the silence before the storm. Your peace is not passive, it's prophetic. It signals something is building. And when you finally move, mountains shift, spirits flee, and systems break. You were never meant to war like the world. You were built to confront with your atmosphere. Just your presence sends signals in the spirit. And when people finally see you rise, when your words pierce and your eyes blaze with purpose, they will realize this was never a game. This was spiritual order being restored. You don't have to prove anything. You're not insecure. You're not unsure. You're simply waiting. Waiting for the green light from heaven. Waiting for the moment when stillness turns into strategy. And when that moment comes, chosen one, when that divine unction rises in your bones, do not hold back. Move with every ounce of holy fire you've carried in silence. Move like the warrior you were born to be. Because you don't just carry power, you are power wrapped in peace. Michelle Obama once said, "When they go low, we go high. But chosen ones go even further. We go deep. Deep into the spirit before we ever speak. Deep into alignment before we ever act. And that's what makes us dangerous. Not our volume, but our vision. Not our chaos, but our clarity." Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." That's why you war differently. You don't just defend, you dismantle. You don't just resist, you reverse the plan of the enemy. So let this section be your divine reminder. You are not timid. You are not passive. You are not silent by default. You are strategic by design. You were made to burn bright, but only at the right time. And when that time comes, the fire in you will not destroy everything. It will purify what was never meant to stay. Your peace is not your compromise, it is your covering. Your quietness is not surrender, it's strength preserved until the heavens open the gate. Stay with me. In the next part, we'll walk deeper into the mystery of living as both gentle and powerful, how to carry peace without ever losing your edge, how to hold space for others without ever shrinking your own divine essence. Because, chosen one, it's time to stop picking between love and fire. You were always meant to carry both. It's not easy walking through today's world, carrying both gentleness and strength. You're constantly being pressured to choose a side. Be soft and risk being trampled on, or be strong and risk being called aggressive, difficult, or too much. But you, chosen one, were never meant to be limited by false choices. You are a divine paradox, gentle in spirit, yet immovable in truth, compassionate in heart, yet unshakable in purpose. And this isn't weakness, it's a sacred kind of power, the kind that doesn't announce itself with noise, but proves itself through presence. So let me ask you, have you forgotten who you are? Or have you just grown tired of explaining it to those who were never meant to understand? There's something unmistakably different about you, the way you speak, not just what you say, but what you don't say. The way you carry yourself, not just when things are peaceful, but when everything's falling apart. Your calm unnerves people addicted to chaos. Your quiet presence disrupts what loud spirits try to dominate. And that's because your stillness isn't passive, it's authoritative. Proverbs 17:27 reminds us, "The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered." You've been through storms that taught you not to flinch at thunder. You've learned not to react to everything, but to respond only when it matters. That's not indifference. That's mastery. That's divine strategy. You are what the world calls a spiritual anchor. When the waves crash, you remain steady. When people panic, you breathe peace. But even anchors get tired. Even those who hold it all together need space to be held. This is your reminder, chosen. 1. That your gentleness is not meant to come at the cost of your boundaries. You are allowed to say no without guilt. You are allowed to walk away without apology. You can love people deeply and still refuse to let them drain your spirit. That's not cold. That's wisdom born from spiritual maturity. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you set a boundary without explaining yourself? When was the last time you honored your peace without needing validation? In today's world, strength is mistaken for volume. People equate shouting with leadership, force with influence. But you know better. You know that spiritual strength doesn't bully. It builds. It doesn't tear down. It transforms. You don't need to raise your voice when your energy already commands the room. Your restraint, your pause, your decision to not engage. That's not weakness. That's heaven flexing through you. And when the time comes to speak, your words are not wasted. They land, they echo, they convict. Think of Maya Angelou. Her voice never roared, yet it moved multitudes. Like her, your quiet is not empty. It's filled with presence. Many chosen ones learn this the hard way. You've been the forgiving one, the patient one, the too kind for your own good one. You've tried to understand everyone, even those who refuse to understand you. But there is a holy boldness rising in you now. One that says, "I can love you and leave you if I must." One that declares, "I will no longer confuse my gentleness with being everyone's emotional punching bag." As Galatians 5:1 states, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." You weren't created to be a crutch. You were called to be a light, and that light deserves protection. Some people cling to you not because they honor your spirit, but because they benefit from your silence. They're drawn to the safety of your energy, but they mistake your stillness for compliance. And the moment you speak truth, draw a line, or reclaim your space, you'll see who was aligned with your soul versus who was attached to your silence. Let me ask you, who in your life has only stayed peaceful because you kept sacrificing your boundaries? This is why balance is your secret weapon. You can hold space for someone and hold firm to your standards. You can walk away and still walk in love. You can refuse to argue and still stand tall in truth. Your energy already speaks before you say a word. Your silence teaches. Your presence corrects. You don't need to fight for every inch. Your peace already takes up spiritual ground. Being chosen means being held to a different standard. It means being called to maturity when others stay in comfort. It means being asked to forgive what was never acknowledged and to love when love isn't returned. But your strength isn't found in becoming what hurt you. It's found in staying you, rooted in light, grounded in love, and unshaken by manipulation. Remember, chosen one, Daniel didn't lose his faith in the lion's den. He let his stillness reveal his power. Just like you, he didn't let the fire consume him. He walked through it and came out unburned. Your true power lies in your choices. You choose mercy over mockery. You choose prayer over pettiness. You choose peace, but not peace at the cost of your truth. You don't silence your spirit to keep others comfortable. You walk in truth and bring peace through your alignment. And if that makes others uncomfortable, let it. You weren't called to fit in. You were called to stand out. As Romans 12:2 reminds us, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You are consecrated, set apart, sacred. That's why your journey feels so different, and we're not done. Next, we're going even deeper. You've seen what's happening around you, but now it's time to unlock what's happening within you, because your strength is not just in your posture, it's in your design. You're about to discover how God wove divine authority into your instincts, your emotions, even your spiritual sensitivity. Stay close. You've only just begun to scratch the surface of who you really are. It's time to understand something that will shift your entire identity. Chosen one, you are the sign. You've been waiting, haven't you? Looking for that perfect confirmation, a supernatural event, a prophetic word, a divine whisper in the chaos. Anything to tell you that you're chosen, that you're walking the right path, that the deep stirrings in your soul are not just imagination. But here's the revelation you've been missing. You're not just receiving signs from heaven. You are one. Your life, your survival, your spirit. That is the confirmation. Have you ever asked yourself why, even after everything that's tried to break you, you still believe in love? Still show up with integrity? Still speak truth when it would be easier to stay silent? That's not just resilience. That's divine identity. Chosen one, the world has trained you to believe that you need external validation to confirm your calling. But the truth is, everything you need to know about who you are has already been written into your spirit. Look at your life. Look at what you've walked through. Betrayal, rejection, misunderstanding, and silence. And yet, here you are. You didn't shut down. You didn't harden your heart. You didn't become what hurt you. Instead, you became even more compassionate. You kept loving. You kept giving. You kept standing. Psalm 139, verse 14 reminds us, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. That includes you. You weren't just born. You were commissioned. Your kindness in a cruel world, your silence when chaos surrounds you, your discipline when temptation rises, those aren't just personality traits. Those are prophetic signals, divine proof that God lives in you. Because anyone can react, but you respond. Anyone can speak, but you carry weight in your silence. Anyone can exist, but you shift atmospheres. That's why people are drawn to you, and sometimes why they're uncomfortable around you. Have you noticed how some people get nervous when you enter the room, even if you haven't said a word? That's because your presence reveals. You are a living mirror, reflecting truth back to those who've spent their lives avoiding it. You don't need to explain yourself to be effective. Moses didn't speak eloquently, but he still led a nation. Ruth didn't seek attention, but her loyalty positioned her for legacy. Jesus didn't need a throne. He walked with the broken and changed the world. And just like them, you are the evidence. Not because you're perfect, but because you refused to quit. You cried, yes. You were misunderstood. You were lonely. But still, you showed up. Still, you prayed. Still, you stayed soft in a world that wanted to make you hard. That's not weakness. That's righteous power. And this is the moment you need to stop doubting what heaven has already confirmed. You are not broken. You are battle-tested. You are not weak for feeling deeply. You are strong because you still choose to feel after everything you've endured. That's not ordinary. That's sacred. 2 Corinthians 12:10 reminds us, "For when I am weak, then I am strong." You've learned that your sensitivity is not a curse. It's a calling. You weren't made to numb out. You were made to discern, awaken, activate. And that sensitivity, that's your spiritual radar. That's God's way of alerting you to what others can't see. Some of you have been asking, why is everything so hard for me? Why do I always feel like I'm in a battle? And the answer is simple, because you're not here to live an ordinary life. You weren't placed on this earth to blend in. You were sent to shift timelines, to dismantle strongholds, to be the living proof that darkness couldn't win. Look back. How many times has your life been attacked right before your breakthrough? How many moments have you felt resistance the moment you chose truth over comfort? That's not bad luck. That's spiritual warfare. Because the enemy doesn't attack what isn't dangerous. And you are a danger to every system of silence, fear, and spiritual deception. You don't need a stage to be powerful. You don't need followers to carry fire. You don't need anyone's approval to walk in your anointing. You've already been chosen. You've already been seen. And if you're still wondering whether God has picked you for something greater, look at your life. Look at your endurance. Look at your fire, that unquenchable flame that refuses to die, no matter how much darkness tries to smother it. Jeremiah 29 says, "His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot." That's you. You've been holding something sacred, and now it's time to release it. Every time you choose patience over pride, every time you show grace instead of gossip, every time you hold back your roar until the Spirit says, "Now," you're waging spiritual warfare. And you're winning. You're heaven's secret weapon. That's why you feel different. That's why your presence lingers long after you've left a room. You don't just carry peace, you're peace. You don't just speak truth, you embody it. You don't need to be loud in the Spirit. The kingdom doesn't count volume, it measures weight. And you, chosen one, you are heavy in the Spirit. You've been underestimated because the world is not trained to see the spiritual. But heaven sees. Heaven has marked you. Heaven has endorsed you. And heaven is the only audience that matters. So if no one else claps for you, if no one else sees what you've carried, what you've survived, what you've built, understand this. The applause of angels is louder than the approval of men. You are not here to convince. You are here to confirm. And your confirmation has already been stamped. So walk boldly now. You are the sign that someone else has been praying for. You are the reason someone will believe again. You are the proof that God still moves through human vessels. And if you ever doubt your calling again, chosen one, remember this moment. Say it with me out loud, or type it in the comments. I am the sign. Say it again until your spirit agrees. Say it until the atmosphere shifts. Say it until every lie that tried to convince you otherwise dissolves. Because, yes, it's true, you are the sign. And the world needs to see what happens when a peaceful warrior finally realizes who they've been all along. Stay close. What's next will activate the truth that's been sleeping in your bones, the divine blueprint etched into your very being. Beloved chosen ones, as we come to the end of this sacred journey, I want to seal every word, every stirring, every moment you felt heaven tug at your spirit with one truth. You were never meant to stay hidden. This entire message wasn't just motivation, it was activation, a divine reminder that your quiet strength, your enduring spirit, your relentless compassion in a hardened world are not just traits, they are proof of your selection. You didn't stumble onto this moment, you were led here, because now is the time, not tomorrow, not when you feel more qualified. Now rise, not with noise, but with presence, not with anger, but with clarity. Not to fight for a throne, but to stand in the kingdom assignment God has already etched into your bones. You've walked through shadows and came out with light in your eyes. You've been refined by fire, but not consumed by it. You've stayed kind when bitterness seemed easier. You've set boundaries not from spite, but from sacred self-respect. You, chosen one, are the kind of soul that heaven trusts to carry truth in a trembling world. Let that settle in. Heaven trusts you. And whether the world has affirmed it or not, you have been crowned. You've been robed in humility and armed with a fire that does not burn recklessly, but shines righteously. So walk with that fire, speak with that fire, guard that fire, because it's holy. You were never chosen to be loud. You were chosen to be loud in the Spirit. You were never picked to be perfect. You were chosen to be real, wounded, healed, restored, and unshakably aligned with the Most High. Just by existing, just by standing in your light, you confront darkness. Just by walking into a room, you shift frequencies. That is the mark of the chosen. And now, I pray you never again question it. To each and every one of you who walked through this message with an open heart, thank you. Thank you for staying, for listening, for letting truth awaken something sacred inside you. Thank you for your presence, your energy, your alignment. If you felt something stir, if this message met you exactly where you are, know that you weren't alone in it. You were joined by a community of warriors just like you. And if you feel led to support this message and help us keep it going, you can do so through super thanks below. But hear me clearly, whether you donate or not, your presence is deeply valued, and you are loved all the same. Your spirit matters more than any currency. Your attention, your growth, your awakening, that's the real offering. And now I speak blessings over your path. May your steps be guided by divine light. May your battles be met with heavenly strength. May your silence be filled with discernment and your words drip with authority. May every place you go feel your energy before you speak. May the fire within you never dim and the peace around you never be stolen. You are more than chosen. You are confirmation. You are a warrior in disguise, carrying heaven in your veins, walking this earth with divine mission. Keep rising, keep walking, keep becoming. And always remember this, you are the sign, and the world has been waiting for you. Until next time, stay rooted, stay ready, and stay royal. What's coming next? You'll want to be here for it, because your story isn't ending, it's just beginning.